Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep on something every leader faces, but not everyone masters inner alignment.
Oh, yeah.
And we're using excerpts from EC #2 inner alignment. Leading yourself, think of it kind of like a guidebook to navigate your own well-being
Right.
so you can lead effectively, not just successfully.
Yeah, it's like the difference between sprinting, towards burnout and running a leadership marathon, with energy to spare.
Exactly. We're going to unpack how inner alignment can make you a better decision maker, build resilience to stress, and you know what? It's time to ditch work-life balance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's something way better.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's called work-life integration.
Interesting.
So this source starts with a powerful premise. Leadership isn't just about outward actions. It's about what's going on inside, like leading yourself, understanding your well-being mindset and energy. That's the foundation.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is how these elements are all interconnected. So, if you're neglecting your well-being, like think sleep deprivation or constant stress, your mindset shifts to like survival mode.
Right.
It becomes almost impossible to lead with a clear vision and energy when you're just trying to get through the day.
The source calls this neglecting inner alignment. And the consequences are pretty clear: burnout, reactive decisions, those choices you make when you're not thinking clearly, and a team that's less engaged because they're picking up on that energy.
Yeah, not exactly a recipe for leadership success.
No.
So let's dig into the first component of inner alignment, self-leadership, and emotional intelligence.
Here's where things get really interesting. The source defines self-leadership as being in the driver's seat of your own thoughts, emotions, and actions,
Right.
aligning them with your goals and values, basically becoming the CEO of you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where emotional intelligence comes in.
Absolutely. Think of it this way. You're in a high-pressure meeting. Things aren't going your way. You can feel your frustration. Rising emotional intelligence is like having a pause button.
Okay.
It allows you to notice those emotions, understand where they're coming from, and choose how you respond rather than reacting impulsively.
So it's about being aware of your emotional triggers, the things that tend to set you off.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that those triggers exist, understanding why they have power over you, and then developing strategies to manage them. That's how you make decisions, based on clear thinking, not on an emotional roller coaster.
Okay, I'm starting to see the strategic advantage here. The source even gives this tip. Try this. It says keep a leadership reflection journal.
Oh, interesting.
Just jot down your experiences, both the highs and the lows, so you can spot those patterns and learn from them.
Yeah, it's like having a personal leadership coach in a notebook, allowing you to be more intentional and impactful as a leader.
All right, let's move on to component 2. Resilience and stress mastery. The source specifically calls out nurse executives because they're constantly operating in high-pressure environments, but honestly, isn't that true for most leaders these days?
You're absolutely right. It seems like leadership in just about any field comes with a hefty dose of stress. But the key takeaway here is that resilience isn't about becoming immune to stress.
Right.
That's unrealistic. It's about developing the ability to recover and enact like a muscle you strengthen through repeated use.
So it's more like bend but don't break.
Exactly. And the source introduces this fascinating concept of micro-recovery breaks.
Okay.
They even mention a specific technique called 5 minutes for me, where you take 5 minutes, maybe between meetings or tasks, to do things like deep breathing, a quick medication, or just a brisk walk.
Wait, are you telling me that taking a 5-minute break can actually make me a better leader?
The research is pretty compelling. These micro-recovery breaks are like hitting the reset button on your nervous system. When we're stressed, our bodies release hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. They're helpful in short bursts, but if they're constantly elevated, it's like running your engine at redline all the time. Eventually, you're going to burn out.
So by taking these short breaks, we're giving our bodies and minds a chance to de-stress and recover, which actually helps us make clearer decisions and lead more effectively.
It's counterintuitive, but true. These micro-recovery breaks aren't about slacking off. They're a strategic way to manage your energy and optimize your performance.
That's a game changer. I'm definitely going to try incorporating these into my day. What else does the source suggest when it comes to building resilience?
One thing that really stood out to me was the idea of reframing challenges as growth opportunities.
Okay.
It's a mindset shift, moving away from seeing every obstacle as a threat and instead viewing it as a chance to learn and develop new skills.
So it's about using those tough moments as fuel for growth rather than letting them derail us.
Precisely, resilient leaders don't get bogged down by setbacks. They use them as stepping stones to become even stronger and more effective.
Okay, I'm starting to see a theme here. This inner alignment stuff is about changing how we think about leadership, not just about learning new techniques.
You're getting it. It's about internal transformation as much as external action.
All right, let's tackle component three, work-life integration and boundaries. I'm ready to ditch this whole work-life balance myth. It always feels like I'm failing at both.
I think a lot of us feel that way, and the source calls it work-life integration, and it's about acknowledging that these two aspects of our lives aren't separate silos, but rather interconnected parts of a whole.
So instead of trying to perfectly balance them, it's more about intentionally blending them in a way that works for you.
Exactly. And a crucial part of this integration is setting clear boundaries. The source really emphasizes the importance of protecting your personal time and energy.
Which means getting comfortable with saying, no, right.
Yes, even when it feels hard.
Even when it's hard.
It's about prioritizing what truly matters both in your work and your personal life. When you're constantly overcommitted and saying yes to everything, you're not able to give your best to anything.
So by setting boundaries and saying no to the things that aren't essential, we're actually creating the space to be more effective in the areas that truly matter.
Think about it when you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. How easy is it to make clear strategic decisions? But when you're feeling calm and focused, you can bring your best thinking to the table.
That's a great point. It seems like this inner alignment stuff isn't just about feeling good. It's about setting ourselves up for leadership success.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that self-care isn't selfish. It's a strategic investment in your ability to lead effectively.
I'm really starting to see the value in this. So how do we actually go about setting those boundaries?
The source suggests identifying your non-negotiables.
Okay.
What are the things in your personal life that you absolutely will not compromise on? Family time, exercise, personal development. Once you've identified those, it's about fiercely protecting them.
Like literally blocking off time in your calendar and communicating those boundaries to your team.
Precisely. And here's a simple but powerful tip. No text calls or emails during designated personal time. It's about creating clear separation so you can truly recharge.
I'll admit that one's going to be tough, but I can see how it would make a huge difference in terms of feeling truly rested and present when I am working.
It's about shifting your mindset from being constantly on to creating a rhythm of work and rest that allows you to be sustainable in the long run.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. What are some of the key things you want our listener to take away from this discussion on inner alignment?
I think the biggest takeaway is that leadership begins with leading yourself. It's about understanding your own well-being mindset and energy and making those things a priority.
It's about realizing that taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's strategic. It's an investment in your ability to lead effectively and sustainably.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And this is just the beginning. We'll be back soon with part 2 of this deep dive where we'll explore even more practical strategies for cultivating inner alignment. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time we were, just starting to unpack this whole idea of inner alignment for leaders.
Yeah, it's about building that strong inner foundation, well-being mindset and energy.
Right.
So where do we go from here?
Well, we left off with me, ready to try those 5 minutes for me micro recovery breaks.
Oh, yeah, how about that?
But I imagine there's more to building resilience than, just taking 5 minutes to breathe, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a journey, not just quick fixes.
Right.
It's about continuously learning and growing as a leader.
So no overnight transformations then?
Exactly. Think of it as a process of self-discovery. You're learning what works for you, what your triggers are, how to manage your energy effectively.
So in part 1, we touched on those, 3 core components of inner alignment: self-leadership with emotional intelligence, resilience, and stress mastery, and work-life integration with strong boundaries.
Yeah,
Should we go a bit deeper into those?
absolutely. This EC #2 inner alignment source, really goes beyond just defining those terms. It offers some specific strategies and techniques you can actually put into practice, like for example, when it comes to self-leadership and emotional intelligence, it talks about understanding your, personal habits and leadership behaviors.
Right. That self-reflection piece seems so crucial. If you're not even aware of your own, patterns and tendencies, how can you change them?
It's like trying to navigate a maze in the dark.
Right.
Self-awareness is the light that helps you see the paths, the dead ends, and, the best way forward.
Okay, so how do we turn on that light? What are some practical ways to become more self-aware as a leader?
One of the most effective tools is that leadership reflection journal we mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not just about writing things down. It's about asking yourself the right questions, like, what situations tend to trigger those strong emotional reactions in you? What are your, default responses to stress? How do those responses impact your team?
So it's about identifying those patterns, right? But then how do we actually change them?
That's where emotional agility comes in. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about learning to observe them, understand them, and then choose how you want to respond. Remember that pause button we talked about?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So instead of just reacting on autopilot, I'm hitting pause, taking a breath, and then making a conscious choice about how I want to show up in that moment.
Exactly. It's about creating space between the stimulus and your response, which allows you to lead with more intention and, less reactivity.
This is starting to sound like a superpower. It's like I'm gaining control over my inner world so I can better navigate the outer world of leadership.
That's a great way to put it. The more self-aware you become, the better equipped you are to make, clear, rational decisions, even when the pressure's on.
Okay, let's move on to resilience and stress mastery. We talked about those micro recovery breaks, which I'm definitely going to try. But, I imagine there's more to building resilience than just taking 5 minutes to breathe, right?
You're right. It's a multifaceted approach, and this source highlights a really interesting point. It's not just about handling the stress you're currently facing. It's about building your overall capacity to handle stress in the future. Think of resilience like a muscle you strengthen through training.
So, how do we train that resilience muscle?
Well, the source suggests a few things. First, it's about reframing challenges as growth opportunities. Instead of seeing every obstacle as a threat, try to view it as a chance to learn and develop new skills.
That's a real mindset shift, but I can see how it would make a difference if I'm constantly viewing challenges as threats. I'm probably going to feel, more stressed and less confident in my ability to handle them.
Exactly. But if you can start to see those challenges as opportunities for growth, you're more likely to approach them with curiosity and a willingness to learn.
So it's like I'm turning those stressful situations into chances to level up my leadership skill.
Precisely. And the more you do that, the stronger your resilience muscle becomes.
That's pretty cool. What else does the source suggest when it comes to training our resilience?
Another important aspect is self-care. It's about making those activities that nourish you a priority, whether it's exercise, spending time in nature, pursuing a hobby, or simply getting enough sleep.
But isn't self-care, a little selfish? I mean, as a leader, shouldn't I be focused on the needs of my team?
That's a common misconception, and this source addresses it directly. It argues that self-care isn't selfish, it's strategic. When you take care of yourself, you're actually investing in your ability to show up as your best self for your team.
That makes sense. If I'm running on fumes, I'm not going to be much good to anyone, myself included.
Exactly. Think of it like this. If you're leading a hike, you wouldn't set out without making sure you had enough water and snacks to keep your energy upright.
Right.
Well, leading a team is no different. You need to make sure you're taking care of your own needs so you can sustain your energy and focus over the long haul.
Okay. I'm sold on the self-care as strategic necessity. Any other resilience building tips from the source?
One more that really stood out to me is the idea of building a strong support network. This could include mentors, coaches, peers, friends, or family members who you can turn to for advice, encouragement, and a listening ear.
So it's about recognizing that we don't have to go it alone, that it's okay to ask for help and support when we need it.
Absolutely. Resilient leaders aren't afraid to lean on others. They understand that having a strong support system is essential for navigating the ups and downs of leadership.
All right, let's move on to our final component. Work-life integration and boundaries. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this concept, especially the boundaries part.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift from the traditional work-life balance mentality, and the source makes a good point. It's not about perfectly separating work and life. It's about finding a way to integrate them in a way that feels healthy and sustainable for you.
So instead of trying to keep them in separate boxes, it's more about blending them in a way that allows both to flourish.
Precisely, and boundaries are key to making that integration work. They're like the guardrails that keep your work life from spilling over and consuming your personal life, and vice versa.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually go about setting those boundaries? It feels so much easier said than done.
You're right, it takes practice and intentionality, but the source offers a few practical tips. First, it's about identifying your non-negotiables. What are those things in your personal life that you absolutely will not compromise on?
Like family dinners or my morning yoga practice.
Exactly. Once you've identified those, it's about protecting them fiercely. That might mean blocking off time in your calendar, turning off notifications during certain hours, or having honest conversations with your team about your availability.
So it's about communicating those boundaries clearly, both to ourselves and to the people we work with.
Precisely. And here's another powerful tip from the source. Remember that saying no is a form of self-respect. It's about honoring your own needs and priorities, which ultimately allows you to show up more fully for the things that matter most.
That's a great reframing. Instead of seeing no as a negative or a sign of weakness, it's actually a way of saying yes to myself and my well-being.
Exactly. And the more you practice saying no to the things that don't align with your values and priorities, the easier it becomes.
That's encouraging. I think I'm starting to see how all of these components, self-leadership, resilience, and boundaries, all work together to create that foundation of inner alignment.
You're getting it. They're like the three legs of a stool. If one is weak, the whole thing becomes unstable. But when all three are strong, you have a solid base to support your leadership journey.
So it's not about achieving some perfect state of balance. It's about creating a dynamic system that allows you to thrive as both a leader and a human being.
You nailed it. It's about finding that sweet spot where your work and personal life can coexist in a way that feels energizing and fulfilling.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this, fascinating concept of inner alignment for leaders using excerpts from EC #2 inner alignment, leading yourself as our guide.
Right?
It's been a journey of self-discovery, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We've, gone deep on self-leadership and emotional intelligence, unpacked the power of resilience and stress mastery, and even challenged that age-old myth of work-life balance in favor of something much more realistic, work-life integration.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, all of this inner work, it's not just about feeling better, it's about becoming a more effective leader.
You're spot on this source, that really emphasizes that connection. It's about recognizing that your inner state, your well-being, your mindset, even your energy levels, they all have a direct impact on how you lead.
It's like that saying you can't pour from an empty cup. If you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to have much to give to others.
It's a powerful analogy, and this source takes it a step further, shifting the focus from simply being a successful leader to becoming a sustainable one.
Okay, I like that distinction. What does sustainable leadership look like in practice?
It's about building a foundation that supports your well-being over the long term. It's about leading in a way that energizes you rather than depletes you. It's about creating a rhythm of work and rest that allows you to show up consistently as your best self.
So it's not just about hitting those, short-term goal. It's about creating a way of leading that allows you to thrive for years to come.
Precisely. And those three components of inner alignment we've been discussing, self-leadership, resilience, and boundaries, they're the pillars of that sustainable leadership model.
So self-leadership and emotional intelligence help us understand and manage our inner landscape, right? It's about becoming aware of those patterns, those triggers, and developing the skills to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively.
Exactly. And then resilience and stress mastery equip us to handle the inevitable challenges of leadership without getting overwhelmed or burnt out. It's about building that inner strength so we can bend without breaking.
And then boundaries are like those guardrails that protect our personal time and energy, ensuring that we're not constantly overcommitted and depleted.
It's a brilliant system. Each component supports and strengthens the others like a three-legged stool. If one leg is weak, the whole thing becomes unstable.
So where does our listener fit into all of this? We've thrown a lot of information their way.
That's true. But remember, inner alignment is a personalized journey. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
So how does someone listening to this decide where to start? Which area of inner alignment should they focus on first?
That's a great question, and the source actually offers a helpful call to action. It encourages readers to reflect on these three components and ask themselves, which area of inner alignment do you need to focus on most right now?
So it's about self-assessment, right? Figuring out where your strengths and weaknesses lie so you can tailor your approach.
Exactly. Maybe you're already great at setting boundaries, but you struggle with managing your emotional responses under pressure. Or perhaps you're naturally resilient, but you need to work on becoming more self-aware of your leadership patterns.
So it's about identifying that one area that feels like the most pressing need, the place where you have the most room for growth.
You got it, and the source goes even further, urging readers to take action. It asks, what's one small step you can take today to start building that strength?
It's about moving beyond just thinking about these concepts and actually putting them into practice, right?
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be anything huge or overwhelming. Remember, progress over perfection. Maybe it's committing to 5 minutes of mindfulness each morning, or setting a clear boundary around checking emails after dinner.
Or maybe it's just taking a few minutes at the end of each day to reflect on your leadership wins and challenges in that journal we keep talking about.
Exactly. The key is to choose something that feels manageable and meaningful to you, and then commit to doing it consistently.
It's about building those small positive habits that over time will lead to big changes in your well-being and your effectiveness as a leader.
Well said. Remember, inner alignment isn't a destination. It's a journey. And like any journey, it begins with a single step.
So to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question. Which area of inner alignment resonates most with you right now? And what's one small step you can take today to start strengthening that area? Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading with intention and impact.